One of the most essential ingredients for successfully running a business is money. You cannot sustain and grow a business without it. There's multiple different ways that you can get that money, but not all money is created equal. The way you get it and the conditions attached to it makes a difference. The most common ways are to borrow it, get an investor, or to use disposable income that you have. But there's another option that is not talked about as much: grants. Grants are a specific amount of money given to a business that does not have to be paid back. Grants are a valid way to gain money for your business without running into debt, giving up equity or ownership in your business, or using your own money to self-fund. If that sounds like it's free money, that's because it pretty much is. Billions of dollars in grants are given to businesses every year from the government, private corporations, and nonprofits. But less than 5% of grants go to Black-owned businesses. Plus, the size of the ones that are given are usually significantly less than what is given to other businesses. These grants are not always designed to be accessible or feasible for Black entrepreneurs. Many Black business owners are not even aware of grant opportunities and the best practices for applying for them. What led to the inequality of grant distribution, and how does that affect the financial opportunities of Black-owned businesses today? How are the next generation of Black-owned businesses in New York overcoming this hurdle? Some of New York's Black-owned businesses are working to crack the grant code despite distribution inequality. In Brooklyn, there's a relaxing tea house in the heart of the city.
We sell and serve loose leaf tea, pastries, breakfast foods, all things tea.
The seedling for the business started out of Ali's childhood experience with tea. He comes from a Jamaican household, so if you know about tea and Caribbean culture, it's very much so intertwined. So he has been drinking it since very early on, since the age of
About 3 years old.
Yes.
And years later, I meet this young lady, and a lot of our dating was around tea. So I'd make her like chais with like a cinnamon stick in the bottom, or like a blooming tea that like blooms in the pot. Instead of going like to bars and bar hopping, we go to different tea shops.
Tea hopping. Yeah.
In Harlem, there's a vibrant bar and restaurant that's rooted in legacy.
I felt like there was an opportunity to bring something different into sort of the dining and drinking scene in Harlem. I had discovered craft cocktails working with mixologists for inspiration, and I was just blown away by the craft and what I was discovering, and I thought it'd be really cool to bring that to my neighborhood. The name 67 Orange Street comes from the last known address of Almac's Dance Hall. It was just like this really important place back in the 1830s and 40s, and the fact that it was a Black-owned bar during that time is extremely unique. It was in 5 Points, the first free Black neighborhood in New York City. The owner of Almac's, Pete Williams, decided to bring people together. He would have these dance-offs between the Irish and the African Americans. One of the dancers, this guy William Henry Lane, also known as Master Juba, combined the dance of both and created tap dance. So when I heard that story, this amazing bar, what it represented for the time, and the fact that tap dance was created there, I was like, that's a great story to root my concept in.
A little further uptown, there's a fitness center making healthy lifestyles more accessible to the community.
We're a fitness studio focused mostly on indoor cycling, but we also do a lot of off-the-bike workouts. So we have from cardio to strength, and we also have an on-demand wellness platform that includes a full library of workouts and wellness benefits. You will note that there are not a lot of boutique spaces that are built around our culture. I was taking classes downtown. I didn't really love them. I mean, they were good enough. You got a good sweat in, you got a workout in, but I didn't love the music. Like, there was always something missing. And then I started taking classes at the YMCA, which did have the music, but then it didn't have the amenities. It was like always having to make that sacrifice and have to choose between what am I going to give up and sacrifice today. So one day I'm out for this run and I was like, wow, it would be really great if one of those studios came uptown. And then it hit me, like if a studio from downtown came uptown, it would just be a downtown studio in Harlem. Still wouldn't be what I wanted. You can't create a space where people feel welcome if you're not actually acknowledging that there are differences among people. And that's what Harlem Cycle does. I went home, wrote a business plan. I was like, nah, I'm tired of sacrificing. And I totally believe we shouldn't have to sacrifice when it comes to health and wellness.
All over New York State, there are local small business development centers. They are free state government programs designed to help businesses start and grow, including by helping them get funding.
I've been at the SBDC for about 9 years now, and we've seen an incredible evolution of both the programming as well as the community. We work with, on average, about 500 business owners and entrepreneurs every year doing one-on-one consulting, and we provide training to more than 1,000 business owners every year.
Having a way to fund your business that does not involve accruing debt can be crucial for business owners.
Grants sort of do help to fill that gap without creating long-term expectations or demands on the entrepreneur that are going to be very difficult to fill.
Federal Reserve numbers show that Black business owners receive less business financing less often and at higher rates. Today, that has led to a huge wealth gap, where the average wealth of a Black family in America is 11 times less than that of a white family, which means Black people tend to have less wealth or disposable income to be able to fund their own businesses.
The reasons why there's so much of a need for grant funding is because of the history of generational poverty. So we're not going to be able to receive money from a cousin or a nephew or an aunt. If anything, the Black tax means that we're more likely to have to contribute to those family members.
That inequality originated from enslaved Africans building the wealth in America for white business owners for over 250 years. That was the original free money.
We're talking about years of economic disenfranchisement. So these programs that are happening now are just a drop in the bucket.
It further reiterates why reparations to Black Americans is owed and still needs to be paid. Maybe one of those payment methods could be through increasing the funding pool for Black-owned business grants from the federal government. We saw a shift in the way that grants were created and issued in the last couple of years in response to events that have happened in our country. First, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, financially impacting many small businesses.
Sales were slumped. The world was scary. On top of just the normal risk of doing business, there was that added risk of the pandemic.
We saw our business decline sharply. So we saw our sales went down to less than 20% of what our pre-pandemic levels were. You needed everything you could to be able to survive that.
In fitness, we were closed for 15 months. And that was, we were the longest segment closed throughout the pandemic. And we're also the segment that got no specific government grant. So, restaurants got their money, everyone else got their money, but fitness and wellness did not. So for us, we had to rely on private grants.
We were only open a year when COVID started, and we were doing fairly well. We're seeing more people come in, and we're doing more events here, and our focus was being a social part of the community. And then COVID hit and no one can come inside. And at the time, our online sales were minimal. It was our parents and a couple friends.
Because the pandemic was affecting everybody, there was all this sort of government money that came in. You had things like the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, the ERTC, the Employee Retention Tax Credit, and other sorts of programs that all of a sudden were available if you could find out about them and understand how to approach them.
Then, the reignition of the Black Lives Matter movement.
The killing of George Floyd really opened a lot of eyes for many people who understood the systems of oppression, but because of the pandemic, it affected them in a different way. And one of those was the economic disparities in America.
All of a sudden, there was this huge spotlight on inequity. Numbers started popping out that people weren't paying attention to before.
The combination of systemic inequities that already existed, plus pandemic-related setbacks, created a uniquely challenging landscape for Black business owners to navigate. That resulted in an increase in grants.
Grants became more available than I've ever seen.
we saw just an outpouring of corporate engagement.
Because there was such a recognition of the inequity that was going on, a lot of corporations and individuals started saying, hey, I want to put money in to solve this problem.
And there was a reckoning, like companies were coming to grips with the fact that their policies and things that they had done in the past had excluded a certain minority of people, and they were coming to grips with that.
For us as a business, I was like, I'm not going to lose this opportunity. We probably got a good 50,000 in grants between my businesses. That's not including the government grants that we got, like PPP and tax incentives like EIDL and other sorts of things like that. That money has been hugely helpful to us in being able to weather the storm.
I've been very blessed in the grant department, and blessed, let me take that back. Not blessed, I worked really hard in the grant department, and it's paid off. So I received about $100,000 when it comes towards grants total. Some of my biggest contributors have been American Express, I Fund Women, Ladies Who Launch, the New York Urban League, New Voices, which is a part of Essence. Those have been the bigger ones. But I still also apply, no matter how big or small, I'll take the $500 check. I'll take the, service. I just got a Staples grant, which only gives me Staples products. But all those help with your business, and it helps with the bottom line, because now I'm not buying products or things of that nature. I've applied for about a solid 112 grants when I look back.
Receiving those funds at that time really helped us to keep our employees coming back and keep our doors open, and to give us some room to think of new creative ways to get more sales.
So those grants also serve as morale boosters. When you're in the middle of a pandemic and you're a small business and you're trying to figure out how to survive financially, it's just a great way to say, hey, there's someone out there who still believes in us, who sees our business as being viable and vital to the community, and that charges us to keep going.
But even free money comes with a price. Grants typically have a number of qualifications that they require for eligibility, and sometimes the application process can be tedious and technical.
Being prepared with your story. Why does it matter? What is your business doing? Why is your proposition important? How are you using your business to improve the lives of people around you? How important is your business to the community?
And having your paperwork together, right? Like having your EIN number, having at least 1 year of tax revenue to show.
Also a range in how much money or gross sales made for the previous year. So a lot of times we're looking for those keywords to determine if the grant might be a good fit for us.
Once you do apply, the selection and awarding process tends to be pretty competitive. There are many business owners applying for a finite sum of money.
You may have a foundation and they say, oh, we've got $100,000 to support small businesses. They always want the biggest bang for their buck. So if they have $100,000, they start to say, well, why would we give one business $100,000 when we can give 20 businesses $5,000? As a result, you set up a competition, and often the rubric for that competition is not as clear as it should be.
The biggest challenge with the grant process is not being grant writers, right? So we are in the business of tea. We're not in the business of thinking like grantors, right? We haven't really quite mastered what it is that they're looking for and how to tell that story in a way that seems appealing to them the most. And so that has been a struggle for us.
Not knowing exactly how to navigate this can be challenging for a small business and can lead to not being awarded many of the grants that they apply for.
When we talk about the grants that we've received, it's been the ones that we've been nominated for, right? In terms of like actually writing a grant and getting it, to be honest, we haven't received any at all.
Zero.
Yeah. And so we just got some recent advice about how to restructure our conversation and our grants to get more access.
That doesn't have to mean don't apply. It can just mean that you need to be strategic.
I've gotten more no's than yeses. And so you just have to roll with it, roll with the punches, develop that thick skin, know that it's not you, and just keep pushing through.
Don't give up. If you apply for something and you don't get it the first time or the second time or the 10th time, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get it. You look if there's an opportunity to refine, and you keep going after it.
You may need to call in help from some professionals.
When business owners come to the SBDC, Often they need a number of services, but most often we do get people that come in because they need financing, and we provide support in quite a few different ways. One is just training people to understand budgets, to understand, to develop their financial projections, to develop their pitch, their elevator pitch, as well as their other marketing materials that will help them get the financing that they need.
The way to learn about grants is to keep your eyes open, stay involved, get involved in local organizations. Uptown Grand Central, which is a community organization in East Harlem. Harlem Park to Park, which I'm a board member of, and an organization here in Central Harlem. Being involved in all those organizations meant that I was constantly hearing about or aware of things that were happening. And signing up for email lists. Hello Alice and Walker's Legacy are two great ones. The NAACP, they're always talking about things. National Black Chamber of Commerce, another one.
Following organizations that their business is to help promote smaller businesses. So like the Start Small, Think Bigs of your community development corporations, and following them and reading their newsletters. Once you start applying to a grant, you get on their newsletter as well, and they will publicize other grants and other opportunities.
People forward them to us, like, oh, you know what? Hey, I heard about this grant that's in Brooklyn. I heard about this grant that's Black businesses, and I get a random email.
Yeah, so we have built this group of small Black business owners who have collectively decided to share information about when grants are happening, even if it doesn't fit our criteria. If we know that it fits the store down the street, we say, hey, this doesn't work for us, but it sounds like you would work perfectly with this.
The increase in grants for Black-owned businesses has been a good start, but there needs to be more ongoing initiatives in order to close the racial funding gap.
We've already seen it now. The pool of grants, it's already going down. And it took many, many years for this country to have enacted these policies that kept minority businesses down. So it's going to take more than one grant, right? Guilt doesn't go away because you did one grant back in 2020. It has to be something in the fabric of their company, in their bottom line, and in their budget to make sure that we're leveling this playing field and keep it going, making sure that this field is available.
Start thinking about it from the perspective of economically growing that business and that community, instead of it being a marketing piece. A grantor that has $100,000 in the bucket, even if you're able to support one or two or three by actually granting the amount that they need, and we're very clear on the amounts that they need when we go through the process of developing their financial projections, the impact that it can have when a business is actually funded adequately means that they are more likely to add jobs, to support the community. They're more likely to grow. And if a funder needs a marketing story, that's an amazing marketing story.
What would the possibilities be like for Black-owned businesses if they had more access to capital overall, and particularly the kind that didn't saddle them with debt or require them to give up ownership of their business?
I was going to say if, but I'll say when. When we do receive more grants in the future, we have dreams of bottling, right? And so with bottling comes commercial space, right? A facility that can withstand that type of growth and development.
We are a really small business, and we would like to be a medium business at least. And there's things you need to buy first in order to get there, so we can hire more people and keep expanding, but we really need some equipment first.
If I was to get more grants right now, a lot of it for us would be focused on making sure that our staff is taken care of, maybe looking into additional benefits to them. Good people are critical to success in business, and particularly in the restaurant and the hospitality space. And so just being able to make sure that our staff are always taken care of and that they're always happy is very important to me.
We have an action plan to open additional studios over the next 5 years. We have 7 new studios that we're planning out. And to be able to continue to grow those and grow them in communities that need us the most, communities that are still lacking. I mean, we're still the first and only cycling studio north of 92nd Street, like in Manhattan, which has hundreds of cycling studios. So that tells you around the world how many different places don't have actual cycling studios for communities of color. We've had investors come in and made me an offer, but they wanted to change things. Like, that is the best part of being able to get your funding outside of that process, is staying true to your true vision and your true mission.
I just want to continue to see more and more grants out there. This wealth gap is only going to be solved by more money being put in and more money being given to aspiring, smart, young entrepreneurs.
Money is crucial for businesses to be able to start, sustain, and grow. Successful, growing, thriving Black-owned businesses help the economy overall. There is a long history of Black entrepreneurship in this country. The ones before have set a precedent, and the next generation is coming behind, finding new and inventive ways to succeed.